Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boy, does it smell good.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
That's good.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio, this is Hunt Palmer.
Hour number 2, Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Markets, official supermarket of the New Orleans Saints, who have a new head coach officially. Kellen Moore meeting with the assembled media down there in the 504. It's the new head man of the black and gold. Luke Johnson covers the Saints for The Advocate, joins us on Thursdays. Good enough to give us a little time on a bit of a hectic day. Luke, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
It is always our pleasure. I have seen some quotes from Kellen Moore's press conference, but I have not heard or seen anything that he had to say. So I'm curious your thoughts on his overall demeanor as he took to the mic today.
Yeah, I think he was probably a little bit nervous to start, right? He was a fast talker to start this thing out. But, good thing for Kellen Moore is he got a lot of practice. I think there were 65 questions asked in his press conference today that lasted about 37 minutes. I think that, look, he's not here to win press conferences, right? I don't think that's going to be what he is. There's no Dan Campbell biting kneecaps moment. There's no awkward Duval moment from Liam Cohen's press conference in Jacksonville. It was just pretty straightforward today. Not really a lot of clear answers on stuff, which I don't think anybody was really expecting. Because he's been the head coach for like 24 hours. They've got a lot of decisions to make in the next month before the start of free agency. Again, a lot of decisions to make in the next couple of weeks before the start of the combine. They're going to need a staff. So I think he has like a general vision for what he wants this to be. I think he probably knows more than he let on today. But we weren't given a whole lot of clarity on a lot of that stuff.
Let's talk about staff first. I want to get to Derek Carr, obviously, a little bit later. But as far as the staff goes, did he give any hints as to what he's kind of looking for? He, of course, is very young. This is his first time. He's an offensive guy. What did you get from that?
Yeah, I kind of asked him straight up, like, hey, as a young first-time head coach, you're going to want somebody with head coaching experience on your staff. Somebody you can kind of lean on for that. And he was like, yes, that will be represented on our staff. Whether that means it's Brandon Staley, the former head coach of the Chargers, who's kind of been heavily rumored to be the favorite for the defensive coordinator job, or whether that means it's somebody who has spent a long time in the NFL, who's no longer a head coach or a coordinator, who can come in as like a sort of advisory role. Either way, I think that's going to be part of his staff. I think he made that pretty clear today, and I think that's smart. Sean McVay was like 32 years old when he started as a head coach. He had very little offensive coordinator experience, and one of the most important hires he made was Wade Phillips as a defensive coordinator. He got decades of NFL experience, who's been in the head coach seat multiple times and who knows how everything goes. And I expect we'll see some of that on the staff. And I expect, he said they're going to go through a quote unquote true process, looking to fill out their staff, interviewing lots of guys. But the combine's in 2 weeks. So I would expect at the very least the defensive coordinator hire will be made before that, just so they know what kind of players they're looking for.
Did he talk about what he is planning on doing with the offensive staff, specifically him calling plays?
Yes, he did say he will call plays, which is, is to be expected, but it was good to know that he's cool just saying that he will do that. That's going to kind of, in a way, limit his offensive coordinator hire, right? Because he's not going to be hiring somebody who's going to be calling plays who can then, when you're the offensive coordinator, you're not calling plays, your likelihood of turning that into a head coach job is smaller, which, it makes sense that Doug Nussmeier is somebody who's been connected to him, as somebody he's coached with a lot throughout his career. And, it's somebody who, he's getting who would get a bump in title, but not necessarily be, considered that kind of hotshot offensive coordinator to head coach type.
And so I think that leads to Derek Carr. And I know that you're not going to get a true answer there, but you've been around that organization for a while. What's your sense on how that decision-making process is going to work?
Yeah, it was really interesting. Somebody just asked him point blank, like, is Derek Carr going to be your week 1 starter? and he's like, I've got a lot of respect for Derek. He's a tremendous player. He's a starting player in this league, premium player. I know his journey, Fresno State to the Raiders to here. It's like, yeah, okay. Like, we don't need bio stuff.
Yep.
And he's like, yeah, I'm looking forward to working with him as we go through this process. Which, like, look, if he was hired to be the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he was asked if Trevor Lawrence is going to be his week 1 quarterback, he'd be like, yes, absolutely, 100%, no doubt.
Yeah.
Even though those two, it's just being real, like, they've had a similar amount of success over the last couple of years. I just think the kind of non-committal answer to that, more than anything, just says Derek Carr's future is decidedly up in the air here. I don't think it's any way saying one way or another that yes, he's absolutely gone, or yes, he'll absolutely be here. I just think they're definitely considering the idea of moving on.
What do you think Derek Carr thinks? I know he's not going to tell you either, but you've been around him too.
I'm sure he's not thrilled about it. I'm sure that he's well aware of the report from Diana Rossini a couple weeks ago saying that was one of Kellen Moore's reservations about taking the job. I'm sure he's getting prepared to have to sign with another team this offseason. Or, if the Saints can work out a trade or whatever, I think he knows that, he's not set in stone as a team's quarterback. And I'm sure hearing, Kellen Moore today, kind of deliver the platitudes without, like, actually committing to him, just kind of cemented that for him.
Was there any discussion of expectations or state of the roster? Because obviously we've talked about that a lot.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like, there was a point in the press conference where he was saying, like, yeah, we intend to compete, and it's one of the things that's enticing about it is, the NFC South is kind of wide open. But at the same time he's saying that, he's like, once we build it right. So it's hard to get a real sense on what that means. We've seen a lot of teams in recent years get out of really difficult cap situations, and eat really big quarterback dead cap hits, and be really successful really quickly. Now, they were in different cap situations than the one the Saints are in. But like, we've seen it with Tampa Bay after Tom Brady retired. We saw it last year with the Washington Commanders. We saw it last year with the Denver Broncos. We saw it, with the Eagles when they ate like a $50 million dead cap hit on Carson Wentz, and they drafted Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round, and he turns into a Pro Bowl quarterback who leads into a Super Bowl title. Like, it can be done, but you have to really nail a lot of other things. And I think that's probably the roadmap they're looking at. I think if you're looking at the Saints and their history, I don't think, like, Mickey is going to be like, yeah, hey, new head coach, new guy, come in and let's just blow it all up.
Yeah.
I think he is the type who just wants to keep as competitive as possible. But I think there has to be some recognition within that organization that, like, what they've been doing hasn't worked. So that it's going to have to change a little bit. So I'm really interested to see how they do it and how they try to thread that needle, because it's an extremely thin needle to thread.
So what's next outside of coaching hires? Is the combine? Is it some roster decisions a la Taysom Hill? What's next for Kellen Moore and the Saints?
Yeah, I think they're going to have to assemble at least their defensive coordinator and probably a couple of his assistants in the next week and a half, like by the end of next week. Because I think they're going to want that full staff in place for when they go to the combine, and have those guys explain to the scouting department what they're looking for in players, and have them on hand to interview players. That's really important. The combine starts in less than 2 weeks. And then once that happens, you kind of start heading into free agency a little bit. I think the first day of the new league year is the 15th of next month. So we're talking about a month from now, they're going to have to make a number of decisions on a number of players. Derek Carr is top of that list. he's got a roster bonus that triggers, I believe, on March 15th.
Okay.
So they're going to have to make a decision on him before then. But I wouldn't expect, just based on the Saints' history, I wouldn't expect a lot of this stuff to start happening in the next week, 2 weeks. Unless they wanted to give guys like extra time to go out and make decisions, which like they could. But I would expect March to be the time when we start seeing decisions on the future of veteran players who have big money attached to their name.
You want to read about it, you can do it at The Advocate by Luke Johnson on Twitter as well. Luke's with us every single Thursday. We'll talk next week, man. Thanks a ton.
Sounds good, buddy.
Always enjoy our conversations with Luke Johnson. A little bit of an update for LSU baseball this weekend. If you're headed out to the box course tomorrow, first pitch is at 2 o'clock. Saturday was scheduled for 1 o'clock. We know that the weather looks bad on Saturday. They have made the decision they are going to move up the first pitch on Saturday to 11 a.m. Central Time. So if you're planning on making it out for the first time Saturday because you're working tomorrow and can't be out there, 11 o'clock first pitch between LSU and Purdue Fort Wayne. It'll be streamed on the SEC Network Plus, but again, 2 hours earlier than originally scheduled. Sunday looks like a good weather day, a little bit chillier, but bright sunshine. That game's still set for 1 o'clock. So that'll all be on the LSU Sports Radio Network, the voice of the Tigers on said LSU Sports Radio Network. Coming up next, that's Chris Blair.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com is that website. How's complimentary maintenance sound? Sounds awesome. It is awesome. And it's part of the deal when you buy a Genesis at Genesis of Baton Rouge. 3 years, complimentary maintenance. If you hate sitting in dealerships, dealing with the oil change, dealing with the rotation of the tires, dealing with the wiper blades, cabin air filters, all that, and it takes out your morning up, you're sitting there watching Price is Right, and you can't get on with your day, that's just not part of the deal at Genesis of Baton Rouge. It's fantastic customer service, and it's something that not everyone is willing to offer. But Genesis is. So if you buy a Genesis at Genesis of Baton Rouge, that complimentary maintenance, it can be valet maintenance as well. They get your car, they bring it to the dealership, you get a loaner, they bring it back to you when it's done. Could not be any easier. Every car that's on the lot is online at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Genesis of Baton Rouge. Genesis of Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
LSU Sports Radio Network going to be a busy place over the next month or so. LSU baseball cranking up tomorrow. Of course, coaches shows. LSU basketball still in full swing. The ladies are in the top 5. There's a ton going on. Chris Blair is, of course, the voice of the Tigers. He joined us on Thursdays, does so now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Chris, how are you?
Oh, doing good. Nothing like a late night, early morning arrival from Fayetteville.
What did y'all do wrong to get all the 8 o'clock starts? Where are the 6 o'clock starts? They're all at 8.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, it's a mysterious thing they do there in Birmingham, how they set these schedules up. But we certainly didn't get any favor as far as LSU is concerned. It seems to be 7:30, 8 o'clock. So I'm super stoked about a 5 p.m. tip-off Saturday.
There you go. Last night, I got to tell you, I'm watching the game. I haven't seen that from Robert Miller all year. I mean, you saw it in the recruiting profile and the YouTube highlights, but he hasn't been that assertive or certainly productive all year. And then all of a sudden, it just kind of clicked. And it wasn't like he was playing against nobody. That's one of the better front courts defensively in the SEC. What it looked like courtside.
Yeah, no, I thought he was impressive. I mean, I think, again, as you pointed out, against Arkansas, the second leading shot blocking team in the SEC, and their front line, they've been inconsistent, obviously, with their wins and losses, but they've been pretty consistent on protecting the rim. And, that was pretty evident. Again, a tough night shooting the three for LSU, well below 30%. So, I mean, you're going to have to find some 2-point field goals. Couldn't get to the free throw line like he did in the first one, 26 of 28. So you got to get to the rim. And, I thought Robert just showed his ability to be patient, maybe let the game kind of come to him as opposed to just getting it in the post and then trying to make something in rhythm or going up too quick. I mean, he was very good. Used his pivot foot, took his time, shot fakes. Really handled Avicic pretty well, who is one of the leading shot blockers in the SEC. And again, 8 of 13 from the floor and career high 16 points. And I think when I look at it, comparing the two teams from the first meeting to the second meeting, I mentioned the difference. LSU had the SWAT party going in the first meeting, not so much last night. They hit 26 of 28 free throws, which was a big factor in a 4-point win, obviously a lot more than Arkansas had opportunities. But the field goal stat was the big difference. And Arkansas actually, even with the loss of Boogie Fland, who was, supposedly going to be a draft pick, he injured his hand. He's out for the season. And Arkansas kind of has tightened up their rotation. I mean, they're only playing 7 or 8 guys, and the guys are playing 32, 33-plus minutes. And I think that's where LSU wants to go. I think the problem has been the inconsistency of which are those 7 or 8. I mean, and it's a perfect example, not that it's not a good problem to have, that you have a guy like Miller who his previous high was against Texas at 9 points, suddenly now, kind of come into his own. But I think that's the problem LSU has. While I think it's important to maybe ask guys to play more minutes and maybe lessen the substitutions, and kind of stick with a group of guys that A, can get you some points and B, can play defense. I think LSU's still having to, substitute 11 and 12 guys into the game because there just hasn't been consistency, outside of Cam Carter, who, again, every night, the SEC, their mission is to make sure he scores, under 16 points a game. And they have been doing that here of late. But I think that's really the key to what Arkansas has done with the prominence of Avicic as well. I mean, back-to-back 7'2" guy with 20-plus points, and most of it's done from the outside.
You mentioned the 5 o'clock tip-off on Saturday. What do you know about Norman, Oklahoma? I don't know much of anything about it. I
don't know much of anything either. It'll be my first trip to Boomer Sooner country as far as, their athletic facility. So I'm sure it will be, fine for us. But we'll see. I mean, it's a team that obviously has struggled. They got slaughtered last night by a pretty good Missouri team. They still have 2 more conference wins than LSU, which is where Arkansas was last night going into that game before they got their 4th win. But I mean, this was kind of an important stretch. It's not, slouch to go to Arkansas and lose in Bud Walton Arena, although it was astonishing to me that last night was their first win in SEC play at home. Yeah. But, you had Arkansas, then you've got Oklahoma who has struggled, and then South Carolina who is still struggling to find their first conference win. So this next couple of games obviously are a chance to just try to get some momentum and try to get some confidence. Because now, with this losing streak continuing to go, I mean, you just wonder how long guys can keep putting up that fight. I credit them up to this point. It's not been an effort issue. It's just been the inability to score the basketball for chunks at a time. And, Arkansas took advantage of that last night.
Chatting with Chris Blair, the voice of the Tigers. Of course, you can hear him on the LSU Sports Radio Network. And LSU baseball crank up tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Let's talk a little bit about that. Your reaction when you heard Kade Anderson would be the first guy for LSU. You certainly saw a good bit of him last year.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me just simply because that's kind of what Jay has said all along, that's a guy that he truly trusts. And, you want to get off to a good start and you want to look good on opening day, obviously. And Jay feels like he's been in enough battles. He's been in the foxhole with him enough that he has that type of confidence in him. So that wasn't a huge surprise. I think it's interesting that we're going to get a chance to see Chase Shores in Sunday's game 3. And, who knows what the rotation is going to be like 2 weeks from now, 6 weeks from now, 3 months from now. But I like the look of this one. Going into the opening weekend, I like that you want to have a guy who, in Chase Shores, that has so much upside that could really be a dominant pitcher in the SEC this year. And to start out things, he's going to be the guy you're looking for to finish up a series. That's got to be a headache for any coach coming in.
You've got Jared Jones, who's a star. You don't necessarily have another proven star. I feel great about Stephen Milam, and if he takes another step. But as I look out there, and Derek Curiel comes to mind, but Jake Brown, now that he's fully concentrating on offense, I feel like could be somebody that emerges. Is that a sense that you've gotten?
Yeah, I think I'm a big Jake Brown fan, and I think, again, to your point about concentrating on one thing, and again, he's super talented, not as if he couldn't be successful doing multiple things, but I think that's going to help him quite a bit this year, and I think he has the potential to be the next great guy, next big threat in the order. I look at this team coming in 2025, and I'm not comparing it, don't get me wrong here, I'm not comparing it to the 2023 team, but from a talent standpoint, it's impressive. The difference, I think, in 2023 is that you had some known commodities, to your point, especially on the offensive side. So I think that's kind of the question mark is, my goodness, the talent. Again, I think Jay's going to have a problem of who does he have in on certain days, and how does he get enough guys, both in the field and on the mound, enough work. And that's a great problem to have. It's just unknown as to which ones are going to be, the big boppers in that lineup. How will he construct that lineup? Who is he going to protect? Obviously, Bear's one that comes to mind, but how do you set that up? But I think the potential of this team, obviously, anybody who knows anything about talent knows they're absolutely loaded with it. And it's going to be exciting. That's one of the things I'm excited about this year, talking to Jay during the fall about, guys that were coming into the program that suddenly were making their names known, is that you get to see those guys become, great players, once they get to college. And, you look at a guy like Stephen Milam, who last year everybody kept saying, okay, but when does that freshman wall hit? I mean, he's so talented, he can do it all, but when does the freshman wall hit? And, I would argue that wall never came. Yeah. In fact, he got better as the season went along. It was kind of hard to refer to him as a true freshman, once we flipped to mid-April. And I think there's a possibility for a number of young players this year to do that, not to mention the transfers. So I can understand why the excitement and anticipation is a peak level for this year's baseball team. And it's hard to believe it all starts tomorrow at 2:00.
Sure does. I'll be on the air at noon just outside the stadium. Who's going to be in the radio booth that I can grab in to come down for a segment?
Oh, it'll be Doug and Buzzy. They'll hold things down for tomorrow's opening day. I'll be in Norman with basketball, and we play on Saturday, as you said, at 5:00, and they've moved the game up to 11:00 to dodge possible wet weather. So those two will handle things Friday and Saturday, and then hopefully we come back with a win from Norman, and I'll be sitting in the booth excited as I can be on Sunday afternoon.
I'll see you there. Y'all travel safe to Norman. Thanks, Chris.
You got it, man.
Chris Blair, voice of the Tigers. If you're just jumping in the car and missed that announcement about 25 minutes ago, Saturday's game has been moved up for LSU baseball. They will play at 11 o'clock against Purdue Fort Wayne. That was scheduled for a 1 o'clock first pitch. Now 11 o'clock, trying to dodge some showers. So still 2 o'clock tomorrow, 1 o'clock on Saturday, 11 o'clock on Saturday, 1 o'clock on Sunday for LSU baseball against Purdue Fort Wayne, the Mastodons, coming up tomorrow. Let's take a time out. When we come back, Jay Johnson named Kade Anderson his starting pitcher for opening day. We'll hear why Jay Johnson did that, and we'll hear a little bit from Kade Anderson himself. That's next on The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Closet space can be a big deal. Some of the older homes that you may be living in may not have a great situation as far as the closets go. That doesn't mean you're stuck that way. You can have David Duvall and his team come in, and they can either use the space that you've got a little bit more efficiently, or they can just create a new closet for you that'll, one, be customized to your exact specifications, and two, is going to look great. It's fantastic work and craftsmanship that David Duvall and his team have done on the closet side of things. Start that process with a free consultation. That part doesn't cost anything. Go to OneBathAndClosets.com, tell them the Hunt Palmer Show sent you there, and then see what they can do for you. When you get to the point of pricing, you'll understand that they've got financing options available. 18 months interest-free, same as cash if you qualify for that. It's all online at OneBathAndClosets.com, OneBathAndClosets.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
Pretty cool interview yesterday with Kade Anderson. It resonates with me. I know it sounds ridiculous to say, but like I never, ever, ever in a million years thought that I would play football at LSU. I loved going to football games at LSU, but it was never like even a dream of mine to play football at LSU because I played football in like 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and I never thought about playing football at LSU. I never really thought about playing basketball at LSU either. But I dreamt as a young kid of playing baseball at LSU because I love baseball that much, and LSU would have been my favorite team. I dreamt of playing for the Cubs too. Turns out none of that happened. But for some people who grow up in this state, those dreams actually do happen. And Kade Anderson talked about that yesterday, and he had a lot of things to say over the course of his 15-minute Q&A. The first was kind of what it means to be the Friday night starter on this LSU baseball team.
Yeah, I mean, it means a lot. But I think overall with this team, I think we have probably 5 Friday night starters. So it's obviously an honor to get the ball first, but definitely got to continue to work as the season goes on because, my spot's not guaranteed every week. So continuing to kind of build on my starts and continue from there.
If Kade is correct and LSU does have 5 Friday night starters this year, the Tigers are going to be a handful. They're going to be a real handful. Because when I think Friday night starter, I think like dude. Not the guy who pitches on Fridays. I think dude. And LSU's had some over the years. And there have been some years here and there where that guy never really materialized. But my concern with LSU is that they don't have any Friday night starters because they don't have anybody on this roster right now that has proven they can pitch in that spot at this level. That is not to say that guys can't develop immediately. Kade Anderson may be that guy, but they haven't proven it yet. And so that's kind of what I'm waiting for. But if Kade's right and there are 5 guys capable of that, I would feel really, really strongly about that. Kade Anderson also talked about what he learned from last year. If you'll recall, early in the season, 10 strikeout performances against Rice and against Southeastern, then a bumpy SEC go where they tried to give him some more extended outings. But then by the end of the season in the SEC championship game and the regional, he was back to that guy that was dominating and putting really high strikeout numbers up. So what did he learn as a true freshman?
Yeah, I think experience helped a lot. Obviously, I had some ups and downs last year, and that helped. And I think learning from those situations, and I mean, I think picking up a slider has been a big help of mine. Just continuing to pound the mitt and get in the zone a lot more often.
The slider is what we're told is the difference maker for Kade Anderson this year. Last year, he had that 93, 95 mile an hour fastball and still got that in the canister. Last year, he threw a slurvy breaking ball, and he mentioned that yesterday and said, look, there was a point at the end of last year where it kind of started to click, but really not until the summer and into the fall did he really feel like he had command of that pitch and could throw it when and where he wanted to. And that's a big difference. He also talked about the fact that he showed up to campus in the 160s and is now pushing 200 pounds. You're talking about 25 extra pounds to put on a young man who was already throwing 94 miles an hour. He's going to be a more dynamic pitcher this year than he was last year. But that LSU's had plenty of dynamic guys that couldn't handle things on the weekend. It's about a mentality, and then it's about, furthermore, executing pitches. And that's what he's going to have to do. He should blow Purdue Fort Wayne away tomorrow. I mean, that's not a good baseball team. I've gone through briefly some of their statistics. They've got one guy who had a nice year last year. Everybody else that was decent on their team last year is gone. He ought to mow him down pretty quickly. You're not going to learn a ton about Kade Anderson tomorrow, but you'd like to see those velocity readings where they need to be, and you'd like to see those breaking balls thrown and executed where they need to be located. And so that's an important thing for him, and hopefully he's taken that from last year into this year. And the last one was taking on a leadership role as what is now the Friday night starter, at least for week number 1.
Yeah, I think being the Friday night starter, I think it puts yourself in that kind of situation already. But I think that I can only pitch probably 6 or 7 innings on the weekend, and we got a lot of innings ahead of us. So I think that bringing those other guys along will ultimately benefit me and benefit the team as well.
I just can't tell you how important it is to have that dude at the front of the rotation who can get you off to a start in the SEC, who can pitch the biggest spot in the regional, can pitch game 1 of a super, can get you off to a good start in Omaha. Having that guy just changes the complexion of a team. It changes when you've got Aaron Nola, when you've got Alex Lang. It just changes things. It changes things when you've got Paul Skeens. And I think that there are some guys who have been in that role over time that haven't necessarily been to that level, and that makes life more difficult. And Kade Anderson's development and whether or not he can handle this role is just massive. We've seen in recent years Caleb Gilbert go out there and be the Friday night guy, and that just didn't really work out. And then we've seen a couple of years ago Blake Money go out there, and that didn't work out. And when you are playing from behind in that spot, and you've got to go to Mikhail Hilliard, who, man, God bless him, he did a great job for the talent that God gave him, which was a fastball in the mid-80s at times and a big old loop and breaking ball. Like, that's, LSU did what they could with him, but that's just not what it looks like when you've got the other guys that I rattled off. When you got Gosman or Renato or Lang or Nola, it's just a different deal. And Kade Anderson has stuff that suggests he could be that guy. His stuff is every bit as good as Ryan Prager's at Texas A&M. He throws harder than Ryan Prager. His breaking ball spins just as much. He's not as old, and his command's not nearly as good. And Ryan Prager was just a second-round pick that didn't sign. But he's thought of as one of the top pitchers in the Southeastern Conference. Like, he doesn't look like Hagen Smith throwing 99 from last year, but he's got stuff that profiles as a number one. It's just a matter of whether or not he can execute it and handle that workload. And Jay Johnson was asked yesterday, why he went with Kade Anderson, and the back end of this soundbite is, maybe a little bit of hyperbole, but it's powerful.
He's obviously really talented. I think it would have been a hard get to college, had he not got hurt in high school and had that injury. But I think the story is what he did from the end of last season. He finished the season great, in the postseason, SEC tournament and NCAA tournament, and then really devoted himself in the weight room over the summertime, transformed his body, elevated the pitchability. Coach Eski's done a really good job with him. It's not surprised that pairing of Coach Eski and Kade has gone well. Whoever you kind of open with and who pitches at the end of the game, you have to really trust the makeup of that pitcher, and I trust him with my life. He's one of the leaders on the team. If I really needed to get something done, I would go to him.
Again, maybe a little hyperbole at this point. He's pitching the baseball game tomorrow, not necessarily a life and death situation, but trust is a big deal to Jay Johnson, and he certainly trusts Kade Anderson. And so we'll kind of put this to bed with this. My confidence level in Kade Anderson, my confidence level in Alex Lang going into 2016 and 2017 after 2015 when he went 13-0 was a 10. I already know the guy can do it. He did it in the SEC as a true freshman. He did it in the regional, did it in the super regional. Super regional didn't go as well that year. But he did it the super did go well. It didn't go as well his sophomore year when Coastal got him. But junior year, they went to the College World Series final. My confidence in him was a 10. My confidence in Aaron Nola going into 2014 after he had been the National Pitcher of the Year as a sophomore was a 10. My confidence level in Paul Skeens going into opening day was probably somewhere around a 7, and that was stupid because I didn't know how good he was, but I hadn't seen it yet. And my confidence level in Kade Anderson is about a 7. That is not to say he's going to jump to a Skeens level 10. But if we come back and circle back around to this and in late April, after he's pitched 5 SEC games, I'm still at a 7 or 8, LSU's going to be in good shape. If he's lost his job and they're still shuffling things in the front of that rotation, like happened with Blake Money and Caleb Gilbert and some of those guys, well, you may be in trouble because sending an inferior arm out there on Fridays against some of the monsters that can present themselves in the league is an issue. And if you're trying to face Gabe Gackle and Ryan Prager and Liam Peterson at Florida and some of these guys in the SEC, and you don't have an alpha, you're going to play from behind a lot of weekends, and that's not a comfortable place to be in. So he's a big, big piece to what LSU's trying to get done this year. He's got the ability, hasn't proven it over the course of a season. It starts tomorrow. And I have no reason to believe he won't go out there and dominate. Now, Thatcher Hurd did not last year. He started the season opener, and he did not dominate. Now, Thatcher showed up in the SEC tournament and was huge, and showed up in the regional and was monstrous, and we don't even have to talk about what he did in the College World Series final, and he'll be in the folklore around here for a long time because of that outing against Florida. But you sent him out there as an unproven weekend arm in the SEC, and it didn't work out last year. We'll see if Kade Anderson is that dude. Jay Johnson says to trust him with his life. Kade Anderson says he's ready to do this, and he's transformed his body, and he's a better pitcher than he was last year. We'll see that starting tomorrow, 23 hours and 15 minutes from right now. All right, we'll take one more time out, come back and close it out. It's a Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is the website. Jonathan Carver and his team, fantastic to work with. If you're a business owner and I say EPL insurance, do you know what that is? Confidently, do you know what it covers? If I say cyber breach, do you know how expensive that can be, what your limit should be on your cyber policy? Do you know what your umbrella limit should be based on the number of vehicles you've got out on the road and what your scope of business is? What about directors and officers insurance? Do you need that? Are you on a board? You need to protect your personal assets? Like, if I'm saying some of these things and you're like, I'm not really sure about that, but you're paying a lot for insurance, you should know about that. And if you have the Highland Insurance Group as your broker, you will. They're an independent agent. They've got dozens of markets that they can place your commercial insurance in, and you'll be protected. They're not going to be a silver bullet where they knock 20% off your premium. That's not realistic in this market. But they can make sure that your coverage is placed in the right place at an appropriate price. It's the Highland Insurance Group. Jonathan Carver and his team right here in Baton Rouge. They can service your insurance needs statewide. It's the Highland Insurance Group. Find them online at HighlandIG.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
Join Hunt Palmer live from the box tomorrow as we celebrate opening day from LSU baseball. Come out and watch a special edition of the Hunt Palmer Show from noon to 2 p.m. inside Fan Fest presented by Powerade as the Tigers prepare to open the 2025 season against Purdue Fort Wayne. It's opening day at the box with 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge and 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge and Citizens Bank and Trust want to help cover your car payments. It's a $5,000 grand prize with a bonus chance to win free car washes from Benny's Car Wash for 6 months. We're also letting you earn extra entries by subscribing to our LouisianaSports.net daily newsletter. To sign up, visit 1045ESPN.com.
Beck mentioned that newsletter that can be in your inbox every single day from LouisianaSports.net. Just an idea of what's right now on LouisianaSports.net. Got 5 takeaways from Kellen Moore's introductory press conference. That's Ross Jackson that has got that story up. I've got a column on Juwan Johnson moving to quarterback. Got a column also up on LSU's baseball lineup, talking about the first lineup being fun, but it's never the last lineup. We've also got news from LSU as they got a 4-star offensive line recruit in Bryson Martinez today. The Saints have requested a former LSU defensive coordinator Durante Jones potentially as the defensive coordinator. LSU Purdue Fort Wayne moved up due to weather. All that information, LSU baseball, LSU football, Saints football, it's all right there at LouisianaSports.net, and it's all free. So you haven't checked it out, we certainly would appreciate it if you do. There are team tabs right there on the top. So if you are only interested in one of those teams I was talking about, you can pare it down to just that with LSU, the Saints, or SEC action. So it's all there at LouisianaSports.net. Got one more order of business here before we get on down the road and get you ready for a Friday edition from the box. That's Take It or Leave It.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
Just take it.
All right, first one here. Oz Perlman, The Mentalist. Take it or leave it.
I mean, I'm taking it.
I'll take it.
I don't know. I've gotten into a rabbit hole with this guy, and it's now showing up in the algorithm.
Yep.
I gotta say, like, I've seen the how-to stuff on magicians and the sleight of hand and stuff. I can't figure out this at all. Like, not even a little bit. The game day bit where he just asked Nick Saban how long a field goal was. Nick Saban just said 34 yards, and he immediately took his jacket off, and he had a 34 on his chest. And then he parlayed that into McAfee and Reese Davis picking Clemson and Georgia, and it was 34-3, and his shirt still said 34, and he had one of them draw a 3 of clubs. Like, I don't know how he does that. He was at the Super Bowl last week, and he just took one of the host's cell phones and unlocked it with the passcode. The guy freaked out and panicked. He had a deal with the Bills where he got Josh Allen to throw the ball to 2 different guys, and then he threw it to a third guy, and then the first 2 guys were the third guy's ATM code when you got their numbers together. I don't understand this. I do not get it at all. I've tried to like think about there being like ways where depending on what the answer is a person gives you, you can kind of create that and like adapt on the fly. It blows my brain that this guy can do it. He does it differently every time. It's not like the quick change folks who just do the same awesome thing every single time. This is a guy that's just like reading people's brains, and he does it on national TV live all the time, and I don't get it. I don't understand.
Yeah, I feel like if you really wanted to do a deep dive into this, you could probably find some people who know how these mentalist people actually do these things.
Well, they say you read facial expressions and all this kind of stuff, but like I don't get how reading facial expressions means he gets Ed Oliver of the Bills to get up in front of the team and say he wanted, what would you do for your daughter's birthday? And he said, I would take her to Disney World. And then he cuts a football in half, and there's a Disney World logo and cake on the inside of it.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's not reading someone's facial expression.
Yeah. I don't know. I have never really looked into it before, but to me, it's not. I mean, I don't know. It's not like this guy's a superhero and he gets to read people's minds.
How do you get the passcode for the guy's cell phone?
I don't know.
Unless he saw him put it in, and which could happen.
Yeah, it could have.
It could definitely happen.
Yeah.
But it blows my mind. I love it. I'm in the rabbit hole. It's in the algorithm. It pops up on Instagram all the time. If there's a new one, I'm so excited.
All right, next one here. I think I know what your answer is going to be for this, but there I saw a post on Twitter at this. There's a golf club in Columbia, South Carolina. So maybe if you,
I'm not familiar with this.
No, you're probably not. But maybe if you happen to go to an LSU South Carolina game, you may check this club out because they now have single rider golf carts. So if you see the video, there's a video for it. I didn't have it pulled up, but anyways, it literally is just
absolutely take it.
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, I'm not surprised at all.
That is A+, 1,000 out of 1,000. Love it. I'm assuming it has a cup holder.
Yeah, of course. They're pretty high tech, it seems.
So yes, I mean, there's just people that walk on the golf course. I'm not a fan of you. I believe you're doing it the wrong way.
But Hunt,
we've gotten better.
You're actually wrong because that's just not correct. That's just not the case.
Mean?
Because if some people, Hunt, I know this is not you because first of all, you play about 7 rounds a year.
That's right.
And also you never walk if you don't have to.
I walk at Cypress Point.
There are some people, Hunt, that actually view golf or use golf as an activity to get exercise.
No.
There are people that do that, Hunt. That is a thing. You're not
slowing me down.
Okay. There are people that use golf as a
beer
exercise
activity.
That's your opinion.
Get out there, knock down a few cold boys, make some bogeys, and get out of the way.
Okay, Hunt. All right.
That's golf.
All right. Next one here. The Tulane baseball team.
I saw this.
Revealed their new Mardi Gras uniforms they'll wear this season. Uniforms are take it or leave it.
I gotta say, I'm gonna be objective here. Like, I'm gonna tell you how I actually feel. I don't really know. Because it's not Tulane's colors, but it is seasonal and like it's a Mardi Gras twist and I'm from here. I don't like the V-neck without the buttons, which it is a V-neck. It's like a pullover. And the other piece to this is I love Tulane's baseball uniforms. I love the Pelicans on the bat. I love the white cleats. I think they look great. So as I put all the pieces together, although I don't think it's just a ridiculous uniform, I'm going to leave it.
Wow.
Leave it alone.
It's a tepid take. It's not terrible. It's not terrible. And if they had ugly uniforms, if they were like Missouri, if they look like Missouri's baseball team, which just looks atrocious all the time, then this would be like, okay, that's better, so I'll take it. But Tulane has such great uniforms. To tarnish them in any way, I think is incorrect.
I think you have to know that you're definitely a minority here. Like,
of course,
it's
absolutely.
just been overwhelmingly positive.
Steven Schock, who's hilarious, who's part of D1 Baseball, said that the uniforms were cleaner than the inside of a shampoo bottle.
Yeah,
is what I believe.
That's what he said.
Was.
Yeah, and I agree with him. By the way,
okay.
I think they're incredible.
I don't think they're terrible. There are plenty of uniforms that I think are awful.
Oh yes, we know.
These are not those. These are not awful, but they look better traditionally. But look, Mardi Gras is important to New Orleans. Uptown squad. It's not that bad. All right, one last time, we'll let y'all know, just could not be more excited to get out to Alex Box Stadium tomorrow. If you are coming to the game, come by and see us at Fanfare just outside the box, just behind home plate. We'll be broadcasting from noon to 2, so if you're headed out there, listen to us on the way, and we'll get you in there and led up to first pitch. Should have a really good lineup of guests. Jamie Tutko, who's LSU's Director of Player Development, who stands right next to Jay Johnson the whole game, the whole season. We're expected to have Kramer Robertson, Antoine Duplantis out there as well. I think Alex Milazzo may make an appearance, so it should be a lot of fun tomorrow from noon to 2. Hope you'll lock us in. If you missed any of today's show, catch it on demand wherever you find your sound. Matt's going to drive you home. He is back from Houston. We're back tomorrow, same time, different place. We'll see you then for opening day on The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.